Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. We have a very special guest on here today, and I'm very glad he said yes. I first met this young man during the 96-97 winter season in Playa Blanca. I specifically remember where I met him. He was in the main restaurant of Playa. I was just coming off my first time, I guess, being sick with that horrible flu that you would get when you worked at Playa. Very, very nice gentleman. He informed me that he was a land sports GO doing what I did in May of 1992. He was an au pair at Playa. His first full season was at Sandpiper in fall of 92 as land sports as well. He is from Orange County. I'd like you to help me welcome Mr. Stan. Hey, Stan, how are you, sir?
Greg, thank you. I'm doing great, and I appreciate being on. This is kind of exciting, and it's an opportunity for me to kind of, think about all my memories and had to, prepare by enjoying those already over the last couple of weeks of just planning for this.
All right. And I just want to make sure for my own ego, you do remember me, right?
Oh, of course.
because with the same chief of village, Lulu, I went to work for her in Otranto, Italy, and you actually came by Otranto, Italy and played some volleyball with us.
Yeah, that was funny. I was in my real life, my non-Club Med life, and I had to go to Italy to schedule a few media meetings. And I was with a 60-year-old Italian consultant. And I said, you know what? We're going to have our meetings at Club Med Otranto. And we did. And he had a ball at Club Med. And he remains a good friend. He ended up being in my wedding. So
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'd like you to take me back in time now, Stan, to before Club Med. So what were you doing? Where were you living? And how did you find out about Club Med?
Thank you. I'll take it all the way back because it's a little bit relevant.
Sure.
I was born in Paris. My father was American military and my mom was French.
Really?
Lived there. Yeah. So I was actually drafted by the French Army
What?
when I was 18. I was.
You're kidding.
And yeah, I'm not kidding. And I said, no. I said, I've got different things I want to be doing when I'm 18 than serving in the French Army. So At that point, I lost my French citizenship, but I had dual English or American and French citizenship. So that was kind of neat. My sister and I were both raised half in Europe and half in the United States. We had the opportunity to be French or European or American. And, those of you that know me, I'm very American now. 50 years later, but I'm 62, so 50 years from that decision about. But she chose to be European, so we have a dual life. But a lot of my life, my wife is European. I spent a reasonable amount of time in Europe, and haven't lost the passion for international, let's say. But born in Paris, lived there till I was 7. Spent 3 years in Berlin, Germany. Again, it was military, and spent most of my early years in Philly. My dad, again being military, was stationed there.
I'm sorry, Stan. Which branch of the military was your?
He was an army dentist.
Okay.
And I will see him.
Wow.
I will see him coming up. He's 93 years old this week, and still doing okay. So
okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you pick up French at all when you were living?
Oh yeah, I was a French kid. I mean, I literally, I had to learn to speak English when I was 7. I was around some English growing up, but I went to a French school. Everything I did was French. My French is native. Yeah, or it was back then.
And do you use the term military brat? Is that what people that whose parents? Okay, all right.
Proudly,
awesome.
And I believed in that. I got a chance. I mean, I went to 6 different schools between 6th and 12th grades, and it made me adaptable. It made me learn to meet people easily. And I think that helps a lot with Club Med because you have to be adaptable and you have to meet people, and those people change every week. So I think my upbringing and being in an army brat was very instrumental toward my Club Med days. Yeah.
This is incredible. Boy, this is why I like this show, because I just learned so much more about you in 5 minutes than I did at Playa Blanca. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You're blowing my mind here. So you traveled. Okay. So from Germany, where did you go from Germany?
Germany my father was in Philly.
Philly?
So
Okay, Philly.
A lot of my teenage years were in Philly, and college was at a college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania called Franklin and Marshall. what they call Little Ivy League, and enjoyed that, and came out of school and went to Washington, D.C. I wanted at that time to be a political operative, which doesn't sound real good to me right now, which we won't get into, of course.
Thank you.
But at the time, that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to Washington. And from Washington, I was with a company that sent me out to California. I actually went back and forth 2 or 3 times, but I ended up in California running their new California branch. I was 22 at the time, and it was pretty. I mean, it was a nice role. I was running a marketing center that had 60 employees, and the company in Washington had nobody else that they could put in the role because of the move. And I was I was thrilled to be moving to California. Back then, California maybe still is the dream.
Yes.
So yeah, came out here, and I remember my boss reported on the president of the company reported on how I was doing in California by saying, yeah, he bought a red sports car. I think he's enjoying it. And I was, and I did, and I was, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Spent some time there working in marketing. Ended up working with a company that was raising funds for nonprofits, a company called Russ Reed Company in Pasadena. Spent 10 years there. But toward I first went to Club Med as a GM. And a lot of my Club Med experiences, actually, probably more than most of your guests, tend to be also GM experiences. I was a GM in Martinique, in Cancun, in Playa, in Turquoise, and since then with my family in Ixtapa. My first Club Med was Martinique.
What year around, may I ask?
I want to say 88.
Oh boy.
Something like that. Yeah.
Say no more. Okay.
Yeah. And it was, a lot of things we can't talk about on the air. No, but it was perfect for me in that it was French. Mm-hmm. Martinique is French colony. It was fun. It was sports by day and partying at night. And it was a great experience. And I thought, you know what, I want to do this with others, with friends, because I went alone my first time. A lot of people go to Club Med, of course, alone. I went alone, met my roommate there, and Sean Harper. We're still friends.
Really?
Still friends, yes.
Okay, because I've seen personally by showing guests to the room a lot of first-time horror stories with the roommates. So I'm glad wow, that's incredible that you stayed in touch.
Yeah, I was older. I was 30 or so. This was in 88. I was 28. He must have been like 21. And so kind of took him under my wing, and we had a great time. And I think he'll remember that as a huge week for him also.
Well, could I ask you one question about Martinique? And we're not going to go into any detail.
Yeah.
I always heard a story that when guests would arrive, whatever New York charter it was, would arrive to the airport Martinique, they would immediately ask to sign up for the picnic. Have you heard this? Like they didn't want to see their room. They didn't care about their luggage. First thing off the plane. Okay. Sorry. That's all I want to know. Okay.
Yeah. I won't go into it, but the picnics were infamous.
Yes.
And I experienced that more in Cancun because I was in charge of the picnic in Cancun.
Okay. We'll get to there.
Again, yeah, we'll get to that, and we'll get to that in a fairly surface sort of way.
Yes. Thank you.
But yes, a lot of people would get there, and the first question was, what day is the picnic? Especially people that knew Club Med and had been there possibly before. That was the highlight. That was going to be the highlight of their week. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you had been a GM several times. So that's how you found out about Club Med. So I guess at what point did you like to say, hey, I'd like to work here?
Well, interestingly, so in 89, after going to Club Med, I decided that I wanted to invite my friends on a trip of a lifetime. And I wanted to invite the people that had been important in my life for the first, 29 years of my life. And it was just fun making a list of those people. If you think about it, Greg, if you made a list today of all the people that have been important in your life that you'd want to spend a week's vacation, that's kind of a fun task to do, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So I made that list, and it was about 150 people. It was from Europe and the United States. And I sent there was no email back then. So I sent a letter that I translated. It was in English and in French. And it basically said, I've had so much fun with so many of you that I would like to throw the biggest party we've ever experienced. And I'd like you to be there because you've meant something to my life, something important to my life. You know, you invite 150 people, not a lot of people go, but we had about 25 people. But I chose that one to be on a cruise ship, actually. And I needed a name. We were going to the Caribbean, and I needed something to go with Caribbean Carnage. So Carnage was originally, the name was Caribbean Carnage. We went on the cruise.
Okay, may I just interject one thing here?
Yes.
I left this out of your intro, but because when I met you at Playa, you were there with Carnage, and I mistakenly thought that Carnage was just for Club Med. Like I said, who is this guy? My God, he's organizing this fantastic thing. And then you told me, no, Greg, it started with a group of friends. So this is incredible. So you guys went on a cruise, okay?
Yeah. So it was we went on the cruise, and somebody had mentioned, I remember, that she worked for, I don't know, I think maybe a suntan company or lotion. So she said, you know what, I can bring lotion for everybody. And then somebody else said, well, I work for this company and I could bring 25 of these and we could do gift bags. And I said, that's a great idea. So over the years, every time there was a Carnage, and Carnage was usually once a year to Club Med and once a year to Palm Springs, California, where people would fly in from 12 to 15 airports around North America just for a weekend in the case of Palm Springs. So I had to organize this in a way that was worth it, that they were going to spend the time and the effort and the money. And we were all 30 years old, or 25 to 40. So it wasn't like we had a lot of money. So I had to make it really, really good. And that's what kind of got Carnage going, got Carnage bigger. But the first Carnage, being a cruise, was a lot of fun. But I had been to Club Med, and I said, you know what, guys, this is a great concept, but we got to do it at Club Med, because Club Med blows cruising away. And especially for what we were interested in, which was sports by day and partying at night, Club Med was so much better. So immediately coming back from the cruise, I started organizing the next club, Carnage, which was in Cancun. And we couldn't do Caribbean. Actually, Cancun was still Caribbean Carnage. Eventually, we went to Playa, and we dropped the Caribbean because Playa is not on the Caribbean; it's on the west coast of Mexico. So that's kind of the evolution of Carnage. And Carnage eventually became GOs, GMs, and non-Club Med people twice a year, coming from all over North America. And every meal was organized. Every meal, we had bands at most of our meals. We had non-Club Med, but for a Club Med week, for example, I would work with the village in advance to organize the events. We'd probably do, certainly one excursion, and we try to pump up the volume on that excursion, whatever that meant. We definitely, do the picnic and a cocktail party on the way in. We'd always do a cocktail party the first night, and the chief of the village would come, and that's how I met Greg Snyder, who eventually became my chief for 3 seasons. And we'd give a T-shirt. Everybody would, this gift bag that I mentioned became, interesting items, let's say. But I would logo T-shirts, hats.
Yes.
I know this is radio, but I'm gonna put my hat on now just for fun.
I remember you gave me
my Carnage hat on.
You gave me one at Playa. I remember.
Oh, I did. Okay,
yes,
good.
You did.
Good.
And I want to mention, you gave me all the beers that you guys did not drink. You gave me cases and cases of Corona. You were so kind to me when you left. Not only that, you gave me your volleyball in Italy, because like as a line sports deal, the volleyball quality is not so good. So you actually came with volleyball, and then you let me have it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, for the volleyball and the beers, Greg. We would do that. We would arrive. We would have that introductory cocktail party. We'd give a T-shirt, like a Carnage T-shirt, to the chief. And the T-shirts, for example, the hat I have on has a blender with balls flying all out of it as the logo. And on the back, there's a little bit of the verbiage that says civil disobedience.
Yes.
And so I would have a lot of fun developing these items for the gift bags, whether it was t-shirts, shot glasses. At one point, we had something that rolled up a can. I won't get into it any more than that.
Okay.
But that was fun. Just different logoed items, and everybody would just pay that toward would pay their share, and they would get that when they arrived. And I never made money on Carnage. The idea was to throw the biggest party we could throw and have the most fun we could have. Any extra money that we collected, like didn't spend, would go into, quite frankly, alcohol. And we always seem to, I'm surprised we gave you beer, because
yeah,
we seem to finish plenty.
I must say, and this is in the sweetest way possible, you guys were so intimidating to me, because here you are at Playa 96, which was already pretty crazy singles village, and in comes a group called Carnage. I was like terrified, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to party with these guys at one point.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have been the sweeter, nicest group of guys. Like, to be honest, no, like, so I'm glad I actually have a Carnage memory, and
thank you.
And you were part of it. Wow.
Yeah, it was a week when I was a GO, and just knowing a lot of GOs, it was the week that GOs look forward to.
Yes.
We were very involved with all the activities, not just the partying. We were no week had more people playing in the basketball tournament or the volleyball tournament, or just being involved. And our concept was, we want the whole village on fire for the week. So anybody that wanted to join us, it was not just us. It was, if you wanted to come and join us for whatever the event was, absolutely, come on in. We'd have cocktail parties 2 or 3 nights a week. And during that week, and everybody, the whole village was invited, anybody who wanted to join us. And I think that made it for a very special week, not just for us, but for the other GMs and the other GOs. You can tell by my voice, I'm proud of what we did with Carnage. I still have many, many friends around the country and in Canada that were Carnage and are still good friends. I have friends that got married because they met at Playa. I had other friends that didn't get married but had kids, and their kids are 23 and 25, that met at Playa. And just a lot of great memories, and really no regrets. We never had any major problems. It was just a great group of, yuppies on a binge, I guess.
Yes.
But a binge of happiness, and a binge of joy. And it really was that fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys played the occasional prank, because I think I recall a couple of your guys pranked the chief of sailing Aranyo at the time.
I remember Aranyo. He's doing very well now in Florida, selling real estate. Yes. I follow him. And
Now you remember Playa. So if you went from the beach to the highest point, like past the nurse's station, up to the top, the highest room, that's a pretty good trek, wouldn't you admit?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think 2 or 3 or 4 of your guys grabbed a laser very early morning and put it at the very top. Now, I could be wrong. I could have sworn it was Carnage, because no one ever played a prank after.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I commend you, because that's not an easy, I'm all for pranks, but that took a lot of effort alone just to get that up there.
Nothing was I could say nothing was in bad intent. Some might have been in bad taste, depending on your perspective. Okay. But we did, we'd put, mattresses, beds out in the, outside of the rooms all the time, including while they were sleeping on them if they were really passed out. I had in turquoise, I had one of my fellow GMs put shaving cream all over my door with some verbiage that I have pictures of that is hilarious. We had a dinner once in turquoise where we had the side restaurant to ourselves, and 150 of us went in our underwear and lingerie. Carnage was always pretty much 50-50 male, female. And it was all people that had a really good attitude, not kind of uptight, let's say. And 150 of us or 100 of us in the specialty restaurant in turquoise, I have a picture of all of us in our not bathing suits. We're talking underwear and lingerie. Absolutely great memory. Stuff like that. It was just, we always wanted to turn up the volume. And I think we did that for us, the GM, Carnage GMs, the non-Carnage GMs, the rest of the GMs, and the GOs. And it was just a fun week. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I can keep this going on Carnage, but my listeners are going to kill me if I don't talk about your first season. Okay.
Yes.
Now, were you a GM? So yeah, in May of '92, were you a GM? Like you say, you're au pair. Like, how did that happen? Were you a GM or no?
So we were there Carnage week. It was April. Met the chief, which was Greg
Snyder.
Played Greg Snyder, exactly. Got along very well. Greg and I played a lot of volleyball that week. At the end of the week, he said, if you want to come back, we can use you for the month of May or for the next month. Come on back, really any time. But he was leaving in June with the rotation to another village. He said, come on back. And I was at home, a media director for an ad agency. I had 30 employees and a very serious job, and actually a very serious agency in that we raised money for nonprofits, some of which were fairly religious, not religion, but World Vision and St. Jude Hospital and places like that raised money to help kids in need. So I went back at the end of my GM week to my boss in Pasadena, and I said, Jerry, you know how your dream is to go to Fiji and own an island, and you're doing that? Because he was doing that. He actually bought an island.
Really?
I said, my dream is to possibly work at Club Med. And I had been there 10 years. I was media director. This was antithetical to what I had been doing, own my home. So I said, Jerry, I would be back in a year. I'll be back in a year, maybe, but I need a year to see if Club Med is going to be a career. I don't want to just be a GO for a year. I think he didn't know the term GO. So I said something of, I don't want to be a camp counselor for a year, but I got to try it because it's French, it's sports, it's everything that I'm about. And if it doesn't work out, I still own my home here, so I'll be back. And he said, you know what, let me talk to the owner of the company. And we had an ad agency of about 150 people. He came back the next day and said, you know what, Russ says, we're gonna hold your job for that year. You get 365 days. I'll do your work for you. 366th day, though, you're not coming back after that, but we'll hold your job for you for a year. So I said, thank you. And I left for Club Med, a few days later and went back to Playa, where I had just been a week earlier, for a month, the last month of the season with Greg's team. My boss was John Pupolo, who was tremendously supportive and helpful. Yeah. Great guy. And he was he was chief of sports.
Yes.
And I was a land sport au pair. And I remember my first 3 days, I was so tired that I didn't think. Now, I'm 32 years old at the time, so I'm older than most of the GOs. And I'm thinking, I am so tired. I can't do this. I cannot physically, go to sleep at 2 a.m, wake up at 6 or 7 to do the morning walk.
Yes.
And then, 8 o'clock to do be in the gym and 9 a.m. to do volleyball clinic. And I just can't do this after 3 days, but I was enjoying it. And it wasn't sticking it out, but I was dead tired. And I stepped up and physically it became very doable, got used to it, enjoyed it more, loved the team. That was the winter, I guess you call it. Is that winter, the spring 92?
Yeah, it would have probably been around closing. So you were there for the closing of the village,
right?
Because
I was there for
rainy
the
season, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And absolutely loved the experience. So then I had a dilemma. Actually, I misspoke earlier in that I asked to go for a month to my company first. Mm-hmm. But then after doing that month, Greg invited me as one of the 15 or so that was welcome to go to his next village, which was going to be Sandpiper. So I went back after that month, and that's when I asked the Russ Reed company. I didn't ask. I did. They came back and said, "Yeah, we'll hold your job for a year." That's when I left for a year. Drove my car was a red RX-7, which became very popular.
I love that car.
Because first of all, you're in the United States. So I drove cross country.
You did?
In this little, drove cross country.
Good.
And my favorite story from that drive and the arrival. You dream about the arrival when you arrive at Club Med after driving for 4 days. You dream about that, throughout the trip. You got nothing else to do but think about it. I get there and there's a GO meeting that moment. So the front, nobody's particularly there to greet me. I didn't expect that, but they said, go to the GO meeting. So I go to the GO meeting and Greg is not happy. And Greg is making the point that we need to pick up the trash everywhere. We need to be nicer. And he says, and he sees me walk in the back and he says, and if you can't handle that, I've got someone who just walked in who's a famous attorney in Hollywood, and he will take your place, and your only decision will be aisle or window. And I'm standing there. I'm not an attorney. I'm not from Hollywood. There's nothing about me that's that, exciting.
But did every head in the room turn towards
every
you?
head in the room turned? They're looking at the Hollywood attorney. But I couldn't say, well, Greg, not really. I'm just a marketing media director. But I couldn't say that. You're not going to piss off your boss immediately. So I just shut up, sat down. He went on with his meeting, and that was my first day of being a real GO at Club Med, in this case Sandpiper. Yeah.
So how long after did the GOs begin to realize you weren't a hotshot Hollywood attorney?
I think I probably told people pretty immediately
when they saw you at
anytime
Power
it came up. I
Walk?
probably told people. There's no forum to tell everybody at the same time.
Yeah.
So as people would bring it up, wow, you're from Hollywood? No, not really. And oh, you're an attorney? Not really.
So you were land sports and Sandpiper. So that's quite a shock after Playa, right? To go to an extreme singles village to a family village, right? Or was it?
Yes. And at first I was, kind of disappointed that it was not a more fun village, but I love Sandpiper for other reasons. Sandpiper, again, I was raised European, and Sandpiper was largely European. I ended up, and I'm 30, now I'm 32 or 33. I ended up bonding with a lot of English and French people to the point where we would spend the week together. In addition to my work, of course, we'd spend a lot of time together. And then after the year I was with Club Med, I went to a wedding in London. I visited friends in Paris. I spent time with GMs that I had known. Generally, the Europeans would come for 2 weeks, so you get a little bit of a deeper relationship. And I just had a great time. And I was the one that took pictures. Most GOs, it's very transitory. Why take a lot of pictures of other GMs? And I would take rolls. These were rolls because back then we didn't have digital. So these would rolls of pictures. I would take lots of pictures of the families and the kids and me and the activities. And then I would go to the local CVS or the photo developer, and I'd get 2 or 3 sets made. And I'd give pictures so that they'd remember me and I'd remember them to the GMs. And they loved that. I loved it. I was looking at pictures today in preparing for, and so that Sandpiper was different. I love kids. I've always wanted kids. At the time I was single, of course. But I love playing with kids. I love teaching water aerobics. I mean, for those of you that know me, you know how idiotic it would be to put me in a pool teaching water aerobics, but it worked and it was fun. And I loved the magic rope. If you don't know the magic rope, the GOs would, the mini club GOs would walk in a line with all the kids, 2 through 10 or 12, and they all held a magic rope, a non-existent magic rope, so that they would stay in line. And then they would sing a song. The GOs would sing a song and the kids would respond, and they all held the magic rope. And we often saw, as I was in the small pool there teaching water aerobics or volleyball, it was the volleyball pool. Sandpiper actually had a volleyball pool. How cool was that? And we'd be playing there, and the line of the GO and the mini club GOs and the kids would just walk by, and it was so beautiful. It was great. So I love Sandpiper for different reasons. Yeah.
Wow, this is incredible. Yeah. And
I'll give you another story.
Yeah, sure. Please. Story? Yeah, please.
The head of circus there was Joe Roebuck. And one day I was over by the trapeze area, And there was a woman there that had been very active in trapeze all week. She was very good, GM. She was very good. And her son, who was 3 years old, little redhead boy, I'll never forget this boy, little redhead boy, had been watching his mom all week. Minimum age for the trapeze was 4 years old. And I hope I don't get Joe in trouble 40 years later or 30 years later. But Joe said to the mom, you know what? I'll take him up because the little boy wanted to do it just like mom. So Joe, and the trapeze is scary the first time you do it for anybody. And he just was so excited to go up on the trapeze. Joe took him up the ladder, put him on the pedestal at the top of the trapeze. Of course, he's harnessed. And the little boy is really hesitant and he's about to start crying. And Joe says something I will never forget in my life. And to me, it is the essence of Club Med. He says to the little boy, you don't have to cry. We're going to fly like Superman. And he lets him go. The crowd goes wild. The child is thrilled, huge smile. And he balances there. And then he goes down onto the net. And people are ecstatic, and the crowd is and it was just a moment that to me captured the essence of Club Med. New experiences, kids and adults, bringing people together. It was just beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, never forget it.
Now, your second season, I see you go to Cancun, but I see your job changed. You were no longer land sports.
Right.
You
right.
were doing public relations?
So I was doing public relations, which was basically
how'd that happen?
Greg and I became close. We're the same age. We played volleyball a lot together. This is Greg Snyder, chief of the village. He says, what do you want to do? First of all, he said, do you want to go to Phuket with me? And I said, yes, because this was the second 6 months of the year that I was going. Phuket sounded great to me. But a couple of days later, he came back and said, well, that was changed. It's not Phuket, it's Cancun, which I had been to. And I was a little bit disappointed because Phuket sounded, but Cancun sounded just fine, just fine. So yes, I was going with Greg to Cancun. And we just decided, you know what, there's a job that you can basically do anything you want within the parameters, and that is public relations. So public relations in Cancun is a lot of doing the intro to, when people come off the bus, doing the introductory speeches if the chief's not available, doing the tours, handling travel agents, handling all groups that come in that have special events like Carnage. And then we added the picnic and some land sports stuff. Like I taught the volleyball clinics and things. So I don't want to say I could do anything. I had an office. But I also did the silly lunchtime games in the pool, and I did a lot of land sports stuff. I did the picnic, but I also did the tours and the travel agents and groups and things like that. And maybe most importantly, taking GMs into Cancun and developing relations with the Cancun city, the bars and the places. So there was a Cancun-based Mexican GO that I worked with. Juan Granados was one, and I forget the other's name, but he was they were wonderful. And we would go into the big bars and say, hey, we want to bring a group in of 100 GMs. Can you give us a deal on the cover charge? And yes, and that was back in the day when we had foam dancing. Now there is something if you haven't done in a while. I won't get into it too much, but you can just imagine.
You mean the foam parties? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the foam parties. Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
do you recall what? Like, I'm wondering because I was Cancun much later than you. Like, what were some of the the popular bars at the time? Do you recall any of their names or no? Like, was it Daddy-O's there or Coco Bongo?
Yeah, Daddy-O's was there.
Okay. So not much has changed then.
Yeah, Daddy-O's was there, and to be honest, I don't remember. At the time, a bar was a bar, but the bars were huge and very elaborate, and they'd spent a lot of money in building out these bars. These were not just bars; these were spectacles. And the foam dancing was in a pit, dancing to rock and roll music in 4 feet of foam. And it was just so much fun. Yeah. And the GMs loved it. And that's what we were there for.
Before we go on, Stan, can you tell me, like, because we jumped from Sandpiper to Cancun. Do you have any good memories from Sandpiper and or Cancun?
Wow. I could go on for hours, but yes. So Sandpiper, well, one was the hurricane, believe it or not. When we were about to get hit by the hurricane back then, I don't remember the name, but it was a major hurricane that did damage to South Florida. And I had my red car there, my RX-7, and wanted to protect it. So I parked it. I had to give it thought, where do I park it so it doesn't get hit by falling rock, if that's the case, and debris. I parked my car in the middle of the golf course because I figured there's nothing around it. That's the safest place for my car. The hurricane really did bypass us mostly. We slept in the gym with the GMs. It was really cool. It was just different. It bypassed us. We were lucky. So that was one fun. I remember we just finished Bastille Day. Bastille Day was a big deal there because of the French GOs and French Club Med, of course. So Bastille Day we built our own boats for that, for boat races. That was really cool. One more great memory. I was not in a lot of the shows because I wasn't real good at following dance moves. So in the we did a Batman show, and they put me behind a television screen, which was basically a cardboard hollowed out, and I would be sitting behind the what looked like a television to the side of the show, and I was the narrator, and I would do it in English and in French. Again, this is Sandpiper. I would do it in English and in French. And so it was so much fun to, they would pan over to me to the right to start, and I'd be picking my nose or foot up on the table or something, doing something stupid. And then I'd say, "Et bonjour, madame, messieurs, c'est Stan qui vous arrive de Club Med Sandpiper, et aujourd'hui, c'est l'histoire de Batman et Robin." And just the whole idea of Batman et Robin, and then each segment saying something in French that was so, such an American thing. It was just hilarious, and I loved that. And I wish I had video of that show. That was a good memory for me.
Well, your French accent is bang on. I may say, if I may say.
Well, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
No problem. How about Cancun? Do you have any special memories from there?
Yeah, Cancun. Well, we had the picnic, which will go, without description.
Well, roughly, give me an idea. Like, how many was there a certain limit that you could bring, or is that you brought as many as signed up? Like
so the night before the picnic, picnic was usually Tuesday, so Monday night, which was for most people was the second or third night. So they've had a chance to get excited about what they hear the picnic is. And I'd come down, there would be a line to sign up for the picnic. And I'd come down with a water gun, this big water gun. And I'm gonna paraphrase because I want to keep it clean.
Thanks.
But I'd raise my hand and I'd say, and I'd really yell this because it had to set the mood for the picnic. But I'd say, this is the line for the picnic, and I'm yelling this. If you can't start partying at 9 a.m., don't waste my bleeping time. And I'd be yelling this. So and then I'd, who's with me? And the crowd would erupt, and then I'd start squirting people. And this is, right before dinner, and people were just like salivating to go the next day. And that was the lead into the picnic. And the picnic, my goal, and I was 33 years old running the picnic. So my goal was not for everybody to get hammered. My goal was for people to have fun. And we would play games that would lead to fun things. May I just interject? Yeah. Where exactly did you hold the picnic in Cancun? So the picnic in Cancun, I would tell people that we're going to take you away from here to an island.
Okay.
Where what happens on the island stays on the island.
Okay. So you went by boat?
And so we would go by boat.
Got it.
From the dock by the pool in Cancun.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd take the boat for about a half hour. And we'd start, of course, on the boat with games. And then we get to they were innocuous games, but they were meant to have a couple drinks. There's the turn your head around the baseball bat and turn around the baseball bat with your head touching the top of the bat.
Yeah.
until you are totally disoriented and run. Of course, there's a little alcohol involved, and then run, and people would just, take 2 steps and fall to the right, fall to the left. It was hilarious to watch. There was LA, San Francisco. There was other games like that. And the last game was always, well, you'll have to edit it if you need to, Greg, the bathing suit exchange.
Oh,
but
yes.
I will say one thing about the bathing suit exchange.
Yes.
I once had.
Wait, was this was done in the water or outside the water?
Yes, this was. So the bathing suit exchange, we would tell everybody to go in the water.
Yes.
Pair up.
Okay. Yeah.
Pair up, and you've got 2 minutes to go and exchange bathing suits, and then come on back out.
That's right. Okay.
And on the shoulders. And it was nothing that could happen now, but it was fun for everyone. I had a couple from the UK. They were in their 70s, late 60s. They went out in the water. They exchanged bathing suits. He's now wearing a one-piece bathing suit. She's wearing his one-piece bathing suit, and and she weighs twice what he weighs. Literally, little guy, big lady.
Okay.
And afterwards, when they came out of the water, they stopped me and said, "Stan, we're 70 years old. This was the best day of our lives."
Oh, wow.
Swear to God, this happened.
Yeah.
She says, this was the best day of our lives. Now you got to take that with a grain of salt, because she had a few drinks in her.
Okay.
But this was the best day of our lives. And that's what, I tried, because I was older, I tried to get it to the point where everybody was happy and willing to do more than they would normally do, but nobody was stinking drunk. And we would largely, with Aranyo's help and Leslie Minton, who was a good friend who would do a lot of the picnics with me, we accomplished that with a lot of laughing and a lot of fun. So that's, enough with the picnic. Other stories from Cancun. Had dinner with Steven Seagal and Kelly LeBrock one night. They came in, they wanted to come into the village.
Really?
They were married. He spent the dinner proud of himself that he said something about, "I hope Leon Spinks challenges me to a fight because I'll kill him."
Yeah.
And Kelly LeBrock, to my dismay, was just lapping it up, like fawning over him, like he's all the big, strong man. And so he was kind of like the guy in movies, all
the stories have come out since, his acting career ended, but that sounds about right. So it even started way back then. Okay.
Yeah. A better set of guests we had, and I won't get into detail, but actually it was very clean, but we had Playboy Week at one point, where Playboy had organized with Club Med to have a week of activities, nothing bad, but just, fun and games. And they brought 2 playmates down, Pierre Reyes from, I think it was the 1984, and this was in 92. She had been Playmate of the month in 84, I think, or I don't know what year. I don't know. I'll have to dig up the magazine. Just kidding, Daniela, my wife. So I would have to go to the airport to pick up Pia and her other Playmate friend, and I don't remember her name. They ended up coming 2 or 3 times to the club. We had good activities, fun activities. Playboy was happy with it. Club Med was happy with it. The GMs were happy with it. And I was their, driver and organized the activities. So I got, close in a very it was a really cool week. It was a really cool week. And I still have pictures signed to me from Pia and the other, and it was just really cool. So, fun memories like that, working nowhere else could you have experiences like that. There is nowhere that allows the staff to play with the guests like Club Med, and encourages the staff to enjoy the experience. And the more they were with the guests, the more the guests enjoyed the experience. So to a degree, and to a certain, stopping point, of course. So I love the concept of not like a normal hotel, where, the guests are there to serve you. At Club Med, not the guests, the staff is there to serve you. At Club Med, the staff, the GOs, were there to play with you. And that was really cool. Those are my stories.
Yeah. And I see right before, I guess I met you in Playa. Well, you spent a month Opera at Turquoise is public relations. Now, was that also with Greg? Greg again?
It was basically, so at that point, I went back to, I'll circle around to that.
Yeah.
I left Cancun. Oh, the last week of Cancun, I made Carnage Week, meaning I invited all our friends to come down. And the last week of Cancun was Carnage Week. And it was incredible. I mean, it was everything I was the organizer in the village for my own group.
Yeah.
And it was the best Carnage we had had. We had 150 people, and the village, the GOs loved it, the GMs, the other GMs. It was just a great week. And then I left because that was the end of the season. And I went back to that job that was held for me for a year. I had decided that I didn't see being a GO as a career. And my goal was to see if I was going to be a chief of village. Nothing short of chief of village was going to be the goal. And I had met with French leadership in Sandpiper. And what takes the longest in terms of training a GO to be a chief of village and to go through the cycles of the levels of leadership, what takes the longest, two things. One is age and experience. And number two is languages. And number three, you have to understand Club Med. But the languages take the longest. Learning a language is not something that you do in 6 months. So being a chief, I used to take, 7 years. And some of the French leadership that I met with in Sandpiper said, you speak French, you speak German and English, of course, some Spanish. We think you can do it if you do everything you need to do in as little as 3 or 4 years. But, I just didn't see myself at 40 years old being a resort manager, which is what a chief of village is, at Club Med. So at the end of that year, Cancun, I went back to my job. I did two things. I went back to my job that was held for me for a year, but I also went to New York and met with Jean-Michel Landau, who was the general manager of Club Med North America. I had written in Cancun on a typewriter because those existed then and computers did not. I think I had a word processor. It wasn't a computer, it was a word processor. I had written a 20-page marketing plan, critiquing what they were doing now, suggesting 20 pages of ideas. And I met with Jean-Michel Landau in New York City, and we had a good meeting. But in the end, I wanted to be middle management, marketing in the offices. And he said, well, he was impressed with the marketing ideas, but sometimes you got to start at the bottom. And here I am, 33 years old. I'm a media director at home. I'm not going to start over when I can, I have. So he said, and I'll never forget this. And he said, sometimes the train goes by, you either get on or you don't. I've proven myself in the villages. I've got the experience both in marketing and in French and understanding French and European culture more than probably most Americans or any American they're going to find. And he still wasn't giving me even middle management. Fine. So I said, no, okay. So I went back to my other job. 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from, I think it was is it Lauderdale or wherever the Miami office?
Port St. Lucie?
Port St. Lucie, wherever the office is down in Florida. And it was somebody I knew at the time. And he said, we're opening up a village in Hawaii. And we'd like to know if you'd like to head up the marketing for the new village. And I had gone back to my agency, but I said, yeah, I would be interested in talking about that. And of course, Club Med never closed that deal. It never happened. There is no Club Med, or has been ever, in Hawaii. And it didn't come to happen. And so my life was changed, which is all for the better. I always say that was then, this is now, and I'm thrilled with where my life is now. But that was my brush with working for Club Med on a long-term basis, and it didn't happen, but that's okay. And I went back to that agency for another year and a half, and then another agency, and then opened up my own. So yeah.
Excellent.
And now, that takes mostly to today.
Well, yeah, if I can take you
other than personal stuff.
Well, if I can take you to the season that we met, I'm just curious. In all your time as a GM, and all your time as a GO, have you ever met, and I'm only asking this question because I was saddened by the news of his passing. Did you ever meet more of a character, a bigger character, GM wise? I'm talking GM than Uncle Larry, because as you know, Uncle Larry was a GM that lived in Playa, and then when Playa closed, you went to Cancun. So, did you ever meet anyone like him, or was there someone more Uncle Larry than Uncle Larry, or that you can recall, or you personally met? Because it's not for me. I spent 10 years in Club Med, and he's the only one that I remember like exactly. Yeah. So I was just curious what you thought.
Uncle Larry was bigger than life for good and for bad, but he was he loved Club Med. Yes. And to the point where he would stay 6, 9, 12 months.
Do you remember why? Like he told me why, and I actually remember this from all those years ago. He said because I think he was from California, your neck of the woods, but right. At one point he found that people weren't smiling anymore. But when he came to Club Med, the smiles were always there, and he wanted to live where the smiles never stop, and that's why he lived at Club Med.
I think of Larry and his Speedo.
Yes,
always looking for something silly or stupid to do.
Well, he would do water aerobics outside the pool in that Speedo.
Yeah.
when Roxanne
with or without the Speedo.
I was warned. Lulu actually warned me or us never to ask him to do the GM show. And one time, one guy, he bailed on me for the Chippendales, and who was at the bar? The only GM at the bar was Uncle Larry, and that had the devil and the angel on my shoulder.
Yeah,
and the angel said, "Greg," she said, "Don't do it," and the devil went, ask him," and then I lived to regret asking him to do Chippendales. I got in a lot of trouble, but worth it.
Larry would be there for Carnage Week, and he was part of us. He enjoyed Club Med in his manner, in his way, more than anyone.
Yes.
And, we miss him. Larry, rest in peace. I'm sure you're partying up there in heaven, but I'm sure he's enjoying himself wherever he is. He had a knack for that, but he was scary to Club Med. He would be the one that he had to be warned often.
Yeah. But that's just part of the story, and the legend grows, right?
Yeah. But good guy and heart of gold, a good guy. Just didn't have a lot of self-control.
Yes. I don't think I did either.
Right. I was just going to say, oops, I shouldn't have said that. That goes into all the names you want to hear, right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, you started your own firm, but I was actually, when I recently contacted you, I discovered you own a store, which is like right up my alley, because I'm kind of interested in the store that you have. I believe it's called Kids Rule Sports. If you can tell our listeners what kind of store you have.
Thank you. So Kids Rule Sports is a side gig for me. It's as my son says, my side hustle. My real job is advertising in Latin America, and Latino Media Services, been doing that for 22 years. That is advertising agency for Latin America, have clients in each country, and that's what I do to pay the mortgage. My passion is Kids Rule Sports, and I do them from the same, let's say, office or store area. Kids Rule Sports is a sports memorabilia and card shop, and have a ton of, you could check it out at kidsrulesports.com. I will give an extra special discount to anybody who says they were a Club Med GO or GM. I don't tend to ship a lot, but for GOs, I would try to. But it's a pretty special store. I had kids come in this morning, for example, that their birthday, James's birthday was yesterday. He came in with his birthday money and bought it a lot of stuff. And then in the end, of course, he got a little bit more because it was his birthday. And he and kids leave here smiling every time. Hopefully, that's the goal. And adults, whether they're people that putting together an office or a man cave or a she shack at home. Everything I have is signed. 95% is certified by the right companies. I've got probably 800.
Do you use PSA or Beckett? Authenticate?
PSA. Okay. I go to PSA. I'm fortunate that PSA is about 20-minute drive from me.
Oh, really?
Very close relationship with PSA.
Okay.
I will see them at the National coming up soon. Yeah. So PSA does a lot of my authentication, grades some of my cards. Everything is certified by PSA, Beckett, Panini, JSA, the first and third party authenticators. Yeah, if anyone wants to see on Facebook, Kids Rule Sports OC, as in Orange County, Kids Rule Sports OC. Make sure you add the OC, because Kids Rule Sports on Facebook by itself was hacked 2 years ago. So I added OC, and I post every day there.
Yeah,
And
I'll put the links in your episode description.
thank you. Yeah, we have like 800 baseballs, 40 frame jerseys, 60 footballs, in encased footballs, logo footballs, all these signed, 60, 65 baseball bats, and a lot of photos. I mean, my footballs, my baseballs include Mantle, DiMaggio, and 800 others. So a lot of fun stuff. And that's my passion. That's my passion. That now, and my wife and kid. Okay. I should say that. Yes.
Now, in addition to all the kids getting in there, I'm curious, because as an adult male collector, do you get adult males coming into your store and like hoping to God their wife doesn't find out that they're spending money? Like, do they ever tell you this? Like
every day.
Okay.
I get, okay. And I get, in some cases, adult females.
Okay.
It's not only the males, but okay. Yes, more males come in. And sometimes they want to pay cash because,
that's right. Credit card,
they'd rather not have a written record. But generally people, they're not going to hide this stuff. It's hard to hide it, and the prices are good, so they're not going to break the bank. And usually the wife is it. I get a lot more people, put it this way, where it's husband and wife coming in together, that they want to outfit an office or a room, and they do it together. That's always fun to do. Yeah.
I got 2 more Club Med questions for you, if you still have time.
Of course.
Okay. So in addition to Greg Snyder, I was just curious, were there any other GOs or chief of services that you liked working with, or that you remember, if you wanted to mention?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. Well, Chris Wheel was my first boss for my first season in Sandpiper. A lot of people know Chris. Great guy. He was, when I was land sports in Sandpiper, he was the head land sports guy. And so he was my boss, and great, just fun guy who jokingly would razz the French. And there were a lot of French at Sandpiper, and ended up being a Francophile, very, very interested in French culture, travels there a lot. And so, but Chris is a good friend. Leslie Minton was a friend in Sandpiper. She was planning in Sandpiper and Cancun with me. And we worked a lot together because I did a lot of stuff with the front desk and planning. And so Leslie, Dan Beeman, whose book, Deep Dive, is on my bedstand right now. I'm reading that book. Dan, I know, has been one of your guests, right, Greg?
Yes, that is correct.
Yep. Exactly. So Dan, whose passion is pickleball and
yes,
expanding pickleball around the world. And last I saw, I thought he was in Thailand or somewhere, but he's living large.
That's right.
And using his experience from Club Med to help him, develop pickleball around the world. So that's pretty cool. And writing books.
Yeah.
Deep Dive. I'm sure it's on Amazon.
Yes.
Who else? One of my roommates in Florida at one point was Sam, the animator, Orendecker. Hilarious guy. Yeah.
I'm hoping to have him on at a very near date.
Great guest.
Yes. We're just trying to get the right date, but yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. We're in contact.
Yeah. And then because in Cancun, I was in my role, I was able to hire au pairs. So I had a lot of my friends come down to Cancun to be an au pair. Stuart Cruz was a big Carnage guy, and he came down and ended up being a GO for a year or so. And a lot of other people, several other people from Carnage and GMs became Club Med GOs in some cases for the long term. So that was kind of neat to be able to do that for my friends. And of course, Greg Snyder, who gave me the opportunity in the first place, who, when he left Club Med, stayed with me in Santa Monica for a month. And so we were close, and he's doing well in Arizona now, working in hotels and doing activities, putting together activity programs for hotels. So something not dissimilar to what his role was at Club Med, and doing very well. Married with a couple dogs and very happy there. Saw him at a baseball game in Arizona, spring training, a couple of years ago. Yeah, so just I had the greatest experience of my life, probably, was Club Med. I mean, great moments, great memories, great friends. We worked hard. We worked really hard. I've been back with my wife, Daniela, and my two kids, Brandon and Dylan and Brandon, to Ixtapa last year. No, 4 years ago, and loved going back. It was like going home. And when I turned 60, my wife asked me, so where do you want to go on the trip of a lifetime for your 60th birthday? Anywhere you want in the world. And I said, you know what? I want to go back to Club Med. And I thought about it for 3 or 4 days first. And I thought about the Maldives and I thought about Europe and said, no, I want to go back to Club Med and I want to go back to Cancun with friends. I wanted not a carnage. We're beyond that. But I wanted to go back and started working with Steve Riley, who's fantastic, good friend from Club Med as a chief of sports, as a chief of village, and now as Barefoot Travelers Club. And I think he just got back from Cancun this weekend. And so Steve organized the trip, and then COVID hit. So we never went, unfortunately. I hope to go back to Cancun either in December with Steve's group, Barefoot Travelers Club on Facebook, or next April with just the family. It depends if we go with the group or with just the family. But expect to go back on that trip of a lifetime to Club Med Cancun in the next 6 months, in the next year, let's say.
Excellent.
Yeah. So and my kids liked it. My kids are very athletic. My wife liked it enough. She had been to Cancun before. She had been to one of the carnages, the last carnage she came to before we got married, and she still married me. How about that? So
very nice.
So yeah, a lot of fun, and I have a lot to be thankful for. My experience with Club Med, and my thanks to all of the GOs and admins and that made that possible for my life and for probably a lot of the listeners.
Wow, that was very well said. Very well said. Now
I read it on a Hallmark card, Greg. Yeah.
Before I let you go, because you've been so kind with your time, am I forgetting to ask anything? Or I mean, I know we covered a lot, but I don't want to let you go unless we can go and you're at peace. And is there anything that I forgot to ask you or anything like that?
No, I think we covered a lot of my history with Club Med as a GM and as a GO. And yes. I appreciate, I hope Club Med does well. I hope the GOs go back and enjoy, whether it's with Steve's group or just on their own, go back to Club Med. You'll enjoy the week. And it's changed, but in some cases for the better. And I hope Club Med does well in the travel space over the next years. Merci Club Med. Merci beaucoup.
Excellent. All right, everyone. That was the man from Orange County, Stan Bruckheim. I hope you liked this episode like I did, and we'll see you all next week. Say bye, Stan.
Thank you very much, Greg. Bye-bye.